The only meeting ever that I lead, so bear with me. Board policy BD states that at the organizational meeting after an election is certified, the superintendent presides and acts as temporary chairman of the meeting until such time as a new chairman is elected. In accordance with South Carolina Code of Laws 1985, Section 30-4-80-E, the following have been notified of the time, place, and agenda of this meeting: Fort Mill Sun, the Herald, and the Charlotte Observer, CN2, and WRHI. Will you please join me for a moment of silence? Now please join me for the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
You have received a copy of the agenda for tonight's November 17th Fort Mill School Board meeting. Are there any corrections or changes? Being none, the agenda will be approved as submitted. Okay, I'm going to step down to the podium for special recognitions, and I'll be back at some point. Okay, it may seem a little out of order, and it is, but we're going to honor our retirees tonight, and with COVID and the situation being unusual, we normally do this earlier in the fall, and we have even done it in the summer and at the end of the year, but we had to push it back this year. But let me just read the statement that we had. Tonight we have the distinct honor of recognizing 32 retirees of the Fort Mill School District who retired during or at the end of the 2019-2020 academic year. As we all know, this past as well as this current academic year has been like no other in the history of education. Overnight, we had to redefine almost every aspect of the educational process. While the district is proud of all the efforts it put into place to ensure the safety of our students, staff, and community members, unfortunately, it also meant that some of the time-honored traditions and celebrations had to be postponed and or redesigned. This included our retirement ceremony. Originally scheduled for May 2020, we were unfortunately not able to recognize our district retirees in a more traditional manner, and I know some of our schools had to put their individual recognitions on hold as well. While our ceremony may look very different this year and be happening later than hoped, our appreciation and recognition of the service these individuals have provided our district is by no means diminished. Combined, our 32 retirees have provided 568 years of service to the district and impacted countless lives during the course of their tenure. These retirees have worked in all facets of the district, from the front lines of our school offices, to the classrooms, to the administration, to those essential services that keep our schools running, such as transportation, student nutrition, and maintenance. We truly appreciate and applaud our retirees for their outstanding contributions to the district and to putting our children first everyday motto into action. Let's stop at this point and just give them a round of applause. Again, we traditionally have a reception type event and put a little more of import to this, but we apologize for that going in, but it doesn't mean that we certainly aren't appreciative. All right, so not all the retirees could be here tonight, and I'm going to recognize the ones who have come. And if are they going to come in front? Come on. Okay. Oh, they're ready. Look out. Okay. Gail Berry retired after 17 years of service to the Fort Mill School District, having most recently served as a food service operator at Banks Trail Middle School. Ernest Martin Dickey retired after 27 years of service to the Fort Mill School District, having most recently served as the band director at Catawba Ridge High School. Mr. Dickey is continuing to teach following his retirement. Martin. Patricia Lynn Gibbon retired after 23 years of service to Fort Mill School District, having most recently served as a literacy interventionist at Orchard Park Elementary School.
I don't have a pretty face.
Miriam Hunt retired after 42 years of service to the district, having most recently served as a literacy math interventionist at Orchard Park Elementary School.
Tears of happiness or what?
Thank you.
Leonard Lash LaRoe retired after 9 years of service to the district, having most recently served as the discipline liaison for the transportation department. Lash. Vicki Niemeyer retired after 19 years of service to the district, having most recently served as a special education teacher at Nation Ford High School. Kathy Pickens retired after 28 years of service to the Fort Mill School District, having most recently served as a reading recovery teacher at Orchard Park Elementary School. Shannon Sanford retired after 32 years of service to the district, having most recently served as a special education teacher at Orchard Park Elementary School. I'm going to read the names of the other folks that could not make it tonight. We want to just hold your applause to the end. Brenda Gill Baber, special ed teacher at Springfield Elementary. Paul Bagwell, a mechanic in the maintenance department. Chris Brock, he continues to teach a PE teacher at Fort Mill High. Kathy Carter, 8th grade language arts teacher at Banks Trail Middle. Marion Cook, literacy coach at Springfield Elementary. Debbie Dirth, school receptionist at Gold Hill Elementary. Linda Fisher, special education secretary clerk at Nation Ford High School. Debbie Gant, senior procurement specialist at the district office. Jan Harris, guidance secretary at Fort Mill High School. Scott Huggins, bus driver in the transportation department. Thomas Cavanaugh, routing specialist for the transportation department. Nancy Leonard, instructional assistants for special services at Springfield Middle School. Jay McCready, early childhood program teacher at Nation Ford High School. Sue McElroy, food service operator and an instructional assistant in the 4-year-old program at Fort Mill High School. Angela McGill, 6th grade social studies teacher at Gold Hill Middle School. Ann Navarro, instructional assistant for special services at Fort Mill Middle School. Sharon Neff, technology teacher at Doby's Ridge Elementary School. Martha Pickowitz, health science teacher at Fort Mill High School. Trying to talk Martha into coming back. Mary Raines, 3rd grade teacher at Springfield Elementary. Vicki Ross, kindergarten assistant at Doby's Bridge Elementary. Kathleen Saporito, special education teacher at Fort Mill High School. Janet Tonston, science teacher at Fort Mill High School. And last but not least, Jan West, coordinator of assessment and accountability at the district office. Let's give all those folks a nice round. Okay, moving on to the bittersweet moment here, recognition of outgoing school board member Tom Audette. Tom can be here tonight, he's under the weather, but he, just so for the public's benefit, these people who are about to be sworn in tonight and who have served faithfully the district do so for all the right reasons. They certainly make no money out of it. They run a nonpartisan campaign. We are at will district, so if you get elected or if you serve in the district, you serve all the children. I think that's very important to note, in all sections of town, not just the area that you live in. And so for those reasons alone, you've got to want to do it to help children. And I'm convinced that Tom Audette met that definition. He, I don't think he missed many meetings during his tenure. He was, like I said, a board member that carefully considered all aspects of an issue before we made a decision. And so tonight we'd like to honor Tom. We'll get his plaque to him later, but let's give Tom Audette a round of applause. Okay, that's the bittersweet. Now the fun part. I want to take this opportunity to congratulate Scott Frattaroli, Christy Spears on their re-election, plus Anthony Bodie, who was elected to the school board on November 3rd, 2020, and ask them to please come down in front. Let's give them a round of applause. Yeah. I guess we need that. The family, y'all.
Oh, now let's spread out. Anything one of you stand here, and somebody, Christy or Scott here. Arms like right in the middle. Are they coming? You don't mind?
They're coaching.
Scott, do you have the Bible?
Wow.
Never get to see you.
Okay. I've done this a couple of times where I've put people out of breath and have got fainted, so I'm going to try to read off small snippets of this, okay? So I'm going to administer the oath, and if you'll repeat after me, place your hand on the Bible and your other hand up. Okay. I do solemnly affirm that I am duly qualified according to the Constitution of this state to exercise the duties of the office to which I have been elected, and that I will, to the best of my ability, discharge the duties thereof, and preserve, protect, and defend the Constitution of this state and of the United States, so help me God. Welcome to the school board. If they didn't have anything to say, they'd say they're glad the election's over, right?
The family does.
And y'all can say anything you like, or we do have some other business to do, so I'll leave it up to you.
Let's get to work.
Thanks for coming. It's been fun.
Okay. Everybody ready? Got your breath? Board policies BD and BE requires election of board officers. I'll now open the floor for nominations for the office of chairperson of the board.
I'd like to nominate Christy Spears for chairperson.
Second.
I have a nomination for Christy Spears for chairperson. Now, who seconded it? Have a second. You get that? Thank you. Any other nominations? And I'm going to close the nominations. All those in favor of Christy Spears as board chair, please raise your right hand. Duly noted. Any opposed? Okay. All right. Christy, it's yours.
Okay, you have the cheat sheet.
Oh, okay.
Our next is the election of the vice chair.
I'd like to nominate Michelle Branning for vice chair.
Second.
Have a nomination and a second for Michelle Branning. Are there any other nominations? I'll close the floor to the nominations then. All those in favor of Michelle Branning for vice chair, raise your right hand. Any opposed? All right, Michelle, congratulations. All right, now I'm off script. I gotta get back to my, okay. So we do have like real business too, starting with the approval of minutes from October 6th and October 20th. You've all received a copy. Any corrections, adjustments, anything? All right, then they will stand as presented. Do we have any public participation? I didn't see anyone out there. Okay. All right, then let's get to some staff reports, starting with the monthly financial and impact fee update. Ms. Lordo.
Good evening. In your packet, we provided the monthly financial report as of September 30th. We are 3 months into the fiscal year, or we've completed the first quarter of the new fiscal year. Total revenues were $21,252,663. Expenditures for that period were $31,909,139. So we were showing a negative cash flow of $10.6 million. We are in a month of using fund balance, as you know. Comparatively, same period last year, we were showing a negative cash flow of $9.2 million. So we are tracking almost comparable with the increase in the budget for 2021. We will see this once again in October, and then we should start seeing some positive cash flow with property tax revenue coming in November. That is our hope and our goal. Once again, with September, property tax collections are primarily vehicles, and we're still tracking about $1 million a month in vehicle property tax collections. Any other questions? No other significant state issues that affected us with revenue in September.
I have a question for you.
Okay.
The reassessment, the countywide reassessment that was done.
Correct.
I know it has taken effect in the home bills that have come out that are due into the year 1st of January. Wasn't sure when it takes effect for vehicles, if at all, and do you anticipate anything different in terms of collections because of the reassessment?
Reassessment does not affect vehicle valuation. Vehicle valuation is based on a state report that comes out from Department of Revenue that the county uses to look up a vehicle by the model and the year. So reassessment does not affect vehicles' values, but great question.
And then as far as the reassessment of home values, it's my understanding that we had to roll back our millage to make sure that it ended up.
We had to roll back so that we are not entitled to additional collections because of an increase in a property value. And I have received very little phone calls since the property tax bills went out. I can probably count on one hand, which tells me that I think the community is pleased with the rollback valuations. And most homeowners should see a bill about the same as the prior year. Most of the phone calls that I get are actually new property transactions where someone has moved here, and when a new home is initially purchased, it is put on the tax roll as a 6% assessment value, not as a primary residence, because the county does not know if that's someone's primary residence. So the new property owner must complete a certification form at the county to certify that it is their primary home, and then the county readjusts their billing for this period. So most of the questions I've gotten have been related to that. And I know that immediately. I know what the questions to ask them and how to direct them. So it's really been a pretty smooth tax season so far since the bills went out. I'll probably get a lot of questions tomorrow.
Just because of that.
Yeah, just
Right.
because of that. The next topic that I want to, oh, okay.
Sorry, I do see that property taxes I would expect them to go up year over year, but they statistically probably even. Do you have any thoughts on that or explanation or look into the numbers? Was it?
Well, we are still entitled to the growth in property, the new property that came on the tax roll. So, I'm very hopeful based on what we plan for the budget that we will see an increase in property taxes overall when we get to January, when we fully see collections in November, December, and January. That'll be the period that we will have a good feel, which gives us plenty of planning time before the next budget year to review and see how property taxes are coming in, especially in light of COVID and the economy right now.
So the September numbers aren't alerting to you, or you're not considering that a canary?
Because it's only
Right,
cars.
it's only vehicles
Okay.
at this point. A little bit of delinquent, but not anything significant in that area. So the next couple months, we'll be watching it very closely to see what comes in compared to last year. The next item I want to give you an update on is impact fees. Total collected to date, we have now exceeded $33 million. We're at $33,046,885. That equates to single-family units of 1,320 and multifamily of 750 for total new units, or new doors as we say, 2,070 units. Specifically in October, we had 46 new homes and 20 apartments that paid impact fees. The biggest news is, as of this week, we have a date for the South Carolina Supreme Court hearing. It will be Wednesday, January 13th at 10:30. We are told that to expect that the COVID rules on attendance will still be in effect, but there will be a live stream. We don't know the extent of how public that will be, but we will keep you updated. We are also planning to reserve space here at the district office if any of you as board members would like to attend and watch it with us that day live stream, because we believe we will have access to the live stream to see that. So that's Wednesday, January 13th at 10:30, if your schedule permits.
And is it, as we know it to be, probably a couple hours, a one day, any idea?
I really do not know. I have not been involved in a Supreme Court case before, so this is new to me as well.
It won't be that long. It won't last an hour,
Oh, really?
if that.
I did see on the schedule that there's a case that morning before ours, and then it's at 9:30, and ours is scheduled to begin at 10:30.
Okay.
So going back to what Mr. Murphy's saying, yeah.
I mean,
Okay.
don't get me wrong, I hadn't been there, so, but it shouldn't. They will have read the material, and so that hearing is really, I think you get 15 minutes aside, maybe a little bit of rebuttal and any questions, but it's very limited. And they will be very targeted questions. So when you go in there, it's straight to the point. There's no introduction. It's right on to it.
Time's money.
We're just very happy that we're now on the calendar.
That's right.
Um,
And again, I don't know what's normal for a ruling after a hearing either, but
It could take some time.
don't know. So hopefully in time for the next budget cycle, right?
Oh, absolutely.
That's the key
Yes.
point for us at this stage, is to get it figured out for the next budget cycle.
Yes. The next topic is, want to give you a quick update on student nutrition. As you know, the federal government had offered free breakfast and lunch meals to students through December 31st, or, quote, until the money runs out. They have now offered the option to the states to extend that to June 30th or until the money runs out. South Carolina put in an application, it was accepted, and now we as an individual district have put in an application, and we're waiting to hear, but we don't have any reason to believe that we would not be approved to extend that free meal offering through the end of this school year. And then just to, we're also submitting an application to offer after-school snacks through the same program for flyers, students attending flyers, as well as Boys and Girls Club. So we're waiting to hear about that as well. So we're trying to take advantage of all the offerings through the federal government. And just to give you an idea of how that's impacted us, we saw a significant increase in October revenue in student nutrition of about $228,000. Now, part of that was because we came back full-time for elementary, but part of that we think was also attributable to the free meal offering as well, and students and families taking advantage of that. Just to give you an idea, the meal counts for October, for lunch, we had 92,000 meals. Compared to September, we had 54,000 meals. So that gives you an idea of how impactful that can be. What's interesting, as you remember, virtual students can come and pick up meals for the week. In October, we served virtual students 23,000 meals. Came and picked up 23,000 meals.
So that's almost half of the total meals were virtual.
Correct.
Even though we're only a third virtual students.
Correct.
That's interesting.
Well, no, I'm sorry. Those virtual numbers are not in those.
Oh.
The lunch numbers I gave you were outside of virtual.
Okay, well, then that makes more
Virtual
sense, because it's
separate.
about half of the total, which is about a third versus two-thirds, so that's
Right.
about right.
So we're very pleased with how that's tracking. You know, of course, we were a little worried starting the year what the impact on the AV day and the concern about, you know, the just students being together. So
Do we continue to offer the pickup service for the meals for the middle school and high school students?
correct. So it's for, that's a great point. It's for full virtual, or if you're an AV student on alternating days, you can pick up as well.
You know, they keep saying until the money runs out. Do we have any idea how we're tracking against whatever that pot of money is?
I've not seen any data
Okay.
as far as from the federal government. But it is interestingly enough, the federal reimbursement rate for these meals is slightly higher than what we would normally have received. So it's a very good reimbursement rate for offering this. So we're pleased that parents are taking advantage of that offering.
Well, hopefully that'll offset the catering we're having to do this year.
I hope so. We're trying to cover the cost. That is, once again, that is a self-funded program, and the goal is to cover the cost in that program without having to supplement with general fund monies. And then the last item I want to give you a quick update. The BEA, the Board of Economic Advisors, have met periodically this fall. They met last week on November 10th. A couple of things that they discussed in starting to think about projections for budget for next year. They're going to use, as of right now, they're using a 1.7% revenue growth rate. It's about half of what they would typically do. But of course, they're going to be conservative and mindful of what could happen with the economy. They're predicting right now for 21-22 about $182 million in new recurring funds. Now, where the General Assembly decides to earmark that, at this point we have no idea. but about 182 million in new recurring funds statewide. There's also a significant amount of non-recurring funds. There's about 980 million in non-recurring funds
From this past year.
from the past 2
Right.
years. So that will be interesting to see what they decide in Columbia to do with that during their budget process as well, when they reconvene in
And
January.
what's the timing? I know they start in January. Any idea when they're supposed to have that done?
I would say in May.
Okay.
It's pretty much our understanding now that when they return, they're going to work on the 21-22 budget, and they're going to let the current year continue to fall under the continuing resolution. So we're not anticipating there's going to be a lot of work on the 2021 budget year, but they're going to start their efforts on the 21-22 budget plan with these projections.
Did they indicate whether they were pleased with that?
I think that Frank Rainwater.
Concerned about but as we get into March,
Yes.
are they issuing any warnings, or Frank Rainwater feel pretty good about?
They're going to continue, he said they're going to continue to review and monitor. They're actually meeting again in February. And I think that's where they will truly lock down their projections for the House and Senate in February. As they really, a couple of the points that they made, they said that South Carolina has recovered about 70% of job loss, but now they expect that to somewhat level out and be a slow incline up. They anticipate returning to pre-pandemic employment levels in February of 2022 is their projection. And they expect wage growth, but at a slower than historical rate. And they also mentioned that none of their data or current assumptions anticipate any additional federal stimulus money. You know, we've heard some speculation, could there be additional federal stimulus? Once again, the BEA is going to be conservative, and so they're not planning on any additional federal stimulus dollars into the economy at this point. They said they felt like the collections were ahead of expectation, but the uncertainty about COVID, about the diminishing impact of stimulus dollars, and the potential for a poor tax filing season. That's just very much an unknown right now, going back to Mr. Murphy's point about tax collections. That is very uncertain what's going to happen with tax collections this year.
Well, and I'm thinking we're going to grow. We're selling houses according
We're
to
selling houses.
all the realtors at the table, and we're going to need teachers. So I guess that's the root of my question in March. And when we do our budget, we'll just have to see.
We'll just have to see where they, you know, the key point will be what do they do with teacher pay and what do they do with base student cost allocations in the budget. And that'll really drive both sides of our budget for next year.
And or any particular influx of the one-time non-recurring dollars.
Correct.
I don't know what it might be
Correct.
for, but new buses or whatever.
Correct. So overall, I think that it was a little more positive than everyone expected. They did show an overall decrease in revenue projections of $49 million, but they had projected a rather large increase, and so they slowly kind of whittled away at that increase during this pandemic time period. And they're now down to only about $36 million over what they had originally budgeted. So they're not in the negative, which is very positive. We're just not seeing that significant increase that we were hopeful for 2021 and going forward. But as I mentioned, they're going to meet again in February, and I think that's really when they will decide what projections they're going to recommend to the House and Senate. But we'll keep you informed as that process starts up. Any questions for me?
Any other questions for me? Thank you, Ms.
Okay,
LaRue.
thank you.
All right, next up, we have a communications survey update with Mr. Duber. He'll make his way from the back there.
I'm going to trust the street continue running by itself.
I hope y'all can still see us out there. He's away from his desk.
Good evening. I'm glad to be up here in front of you guys tonight. This is something that I've been looking forward to working on for quite a while now. We actually had this process originally slated to start the early part of this year, and There were a few circumstances that got in the way of that. So I'm glad to be here tonight to talk with us. I have a couple people who joined me. Katie Dugan from Rhodes Branding and Kevin Young are both from Rhodes Branding. They came up tonight to be with us. They conducted a portion of this communications audit, which we're going to talk about a little bit of our data here first, and then we're going to get into their portion. And I invited them up tonight because we thought it was very important to have that part of the survey or part of the audit done by a third party so that it got the truly unbiased look. So they provided everything in that portion of the presentation. So if you have specific questions to them, you're welcome to ask those once we get down to them. So we'll dive in first into the data portion of it. What we did here first, obviously we have a lot of different avenues to send out communications. One of the biggest ones obviously is our email and our phone calls, but also we have text, we have app, we have multiple social media pages, we have the website. So we've even added YouTube at this point, so that's another new feature that's out there. So the first thing I want to give you a little bit of our data on some of those individual sites, and then when we get into the survey, you're going to see how those play a different role depending on who you are in our community. So the first one we're going to talk about is the district app, which is a relatively new for us. We've only had it for about a year and a half, almost 2 years at this point. It was launched at the initial start of the 2019 school year, and that's where we got the majority of our people coming on board, but it continued to siphon through. This graph actually shows the app downloads that we've had for Google and for Apple, unfortunately, because Apple decided to do a massive update in 2020 and forced everybody to download it within a day. It's kind of hard to see where our peaks and valleys are, but we have seen some good response from our app, and some of that is shown right here when you get into our page views. And this is really nice because we're able to see what people use each individual service for. So under our app, obviously the biggest one is notifications when we send them out, and we've been increasing that now. We've been sending more and more of our notifications out, including the app along with the other stuff, and we're getting a lot of good response. Not shockingly, meal viewer is the next highest one up there. Everybody loves food. They want to see what they're going to get to eat. So Power School is another good one because they can access the Power School portal through the app. If we ever were to transition to the upgraded app, there's more functionality with Power School that comes into there, but so far it seems to still be working good, even at the level we're using it. Some of the lower ones, obviously you want them to be lower. Tip line, we're taking that as a good thing because we're not getting, that's not the highest viewed page, and that would be a worry if it was. I'm kind of surprised to see athletics down. I think that if we can get more coverage out there that we have that, we'll probably see that increase as well too.
What's the superintendent page?
That's the page that has his bio and information on him on there.
Was it on there?
Yeah, it's on
It's
there.
way down at the bottom.
Oh, darn.
Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter.
That's
And that's great.
That's bad.
I wanted to put this up here because this is something else that's really unique about the app. Inside of the app, people can customize it to choose to follow whatever features and they want from our school district. So if you have a kid at Formal High School and one at TK or one at Springfield, you can follow just those schools, and certain portions of the app, like the calendar, will populate with information just from those schools. The news feed will populate with information just from their news feeds. So everybody, and I'll never turn this off, is automatically assigned to follow the district. That's just the way it is. If you want my app, you got to listen to what I got to say too. But we held a little competition at the beginning of the year to kick off getting people to download it with our schools. We held it between the high schools, middle and elementary at the levels. Our winners were Formal High School, TDK Elementary, and then I believe Gold Hill Middle was our middle school winner. They got some donuts from us for their
All the
admin
same
staff.
families,
Yes.
right? It's all the same families.
Yes.
For the most part.
Exactly. So they had their campaigns out there. Bridget was calling me every day to find out if she was still in the lead. So, but that was a great way to kick off the app. And what we want to do is do more of that kind of stuff, get our schools involved with marketing of it to get more of our parents on it.
And then, so what was the board of trustees on there? Because I was expecting that to be all schools, but we have a
No,
separate.
you guys can follow, but mostly that's just your calendar with the board,
Okay.
the board dates on it, which also appear on the regular formal calendar. So that's one of those ones that Blackboard, when they create the apps, it is a standard that they put in, but depending on the district, it may or may not get used. Because we use on our actual district calendar has all of y'all's information and dates through there. It's not necessarily a separate page anybody needs to follow.
I noticed at the bottom are the two new elementaries.
Yes.
So I know, like I said, it launched last year.
They weren't here when we
So,
did
right,
this. Yeah.
so maybe an opportunity to remind everybody at the new schools to go out and try to
And
get
we're going to
service.
see some of that when we get into the survey portion.
Okay.
One of the other avenues we have is the Pulse newsletter. This is something that's still relatively new. It's a little over a year old at this point. This was not designed to be a single source point of perfectly new information. This was more of a monthly recap that was put out, but it has gotten a very good response to it. It's not even geared specifically to our parents or staff. It's geared more to the general community members so that they can keep up with what's going on. And a large number of our original people that we put on the mailing list were not parents in our district or employees in our district. They were just standard community members or organizers, those types of things that we wanted to make sure they knew what was going on. The nice thing that we have seen is that all of our rates, our open rates, our click-through rates, and our bounce rates are considerably higher, not only than the average for all businesses in general, but they're considerably higher than the elementary, middle, and high school industry standards as well. So, I mean, we're almost double at the open rate, or right at double at the open rate. We're pretty close to triple on the click rate. Even our bounce rate is lower, which is where it's supposed to be too. So we're seeing a very good response for that right now. And you can kind of see it here too. This is pretty much a similar representation. The dotted lines are the industry averages and the circle lines are for us. The nice thing about that is, other than a little bit of a dip on the click-through rate, our lines are staying pretty consistent across the board. They're not having these wild shifts where people are not opening our emails or clicking on our stories.
So go back to the last one. I want to make sure I understand it. So of the people who receive it,
Yep.
roughly half of them are at least opening it and seeing the headlines.
Yes.
And about a quarter are clicking on something to read the article itself. Is that okay? That's good.
Which a lot of people don't seem like a lot, but then you look at a national click-through rate average of only 9%. We're doing pretty good.
So 2 questions. First question, how do we add other community people? How do others
Sure.
get in?
What we did is we started off, we pulled a list of our own. We went and found names that we could identify from all of our different groups and stuff like that, and we just went ahead and started sending it to them. And then we started asking them to have other people sign up for it. And then what we saw was more and more people started hearing about it, so we actually put up a sign-up link. We started advertising it on Facebook, and our numbers, I believe the last time I had checked, we had a little bit of a transition because at the end of the year, we loaded all of our parents into it because we thought that was a good way to do the end of the year. So that skewed the numbers, but I want to say of our sign-ups, we were somewhere around I want to say it was around 1,200 sign-ups, and we started that originally with about 500. So we're doing pretty good on that side too.
Second question then, for the open rate, does that take into account if I've opened it on my phone?
Yes, it does take into mobile. Yeah, anywhere you open through, it's going to register back to contact.
So
we use Constant Contact for that, which is a pretty known software, and they track it very well.
So I could be counted twice in the open because I opened it and then I read it later all night.
I don't know that that's the case. I think once your email to your email is opened, it's open. I don't think it would matter device because it's still the same email address. Now, if you had 2 email addresses and were getting it, then you probably would get counted twice.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, so this it's going out to about 17,000 people, which is pretty much the equivalent of our parent base.
Well, no, that's the total sends that we've sent out total throughout the time we've had
emails.
the email.
So we have a subscription size of what?
Yeah, we probably have a subscription size of around 1,200, I think. What did Katie? Do you remember offhand?
Yeah, it was a little less than 1,500, I
Yeah,
believe.
and I think that's what you and I looked at today too. Or not today, recently. So it's
So
about
that's-
1,500 a month.
All right, so that's what we need to up.
Yes.
We need to
Yeah, we
promote
need to bring that up.
a higher number of people actually receiving. Okay.
Yeah.
So the 1,500, that could be parents, but it could also be employees,
Be
right?
anybody, because we have that,
Community
the
members.
quick sign up link can be anybody that wants to do it.
Grandparents, anybody,
Anybody who's interested in the district can sign up for that link.
Mr. Burke, you said this was pretty good, the open rate and the stats on that newsletter program. I think you're underselling it. I mean, I've looked at some of this stuff, and that's fantastic. Congratulations. That's a fantastically successful program to be getting more than half. I mean, I don't know how many standard deviations that is away from the industry standard that we're in, but if you even go to like business email, I mean, it's huge. So congratulations. That's a huge program and an amazing stat. So congratulations. I think you should toot your horn a little bit more, is what I'm saying. That's an amazing job.
I appreciate it, and I think the key for that, again, it was a targeted type of newsletter that we didn't want to overdo. We feel like if we had started putting this out weekly or bi-monthly instead of just monthly, I think that starts to drop off. But because of the way it was designed, I think that's where it comes from. And we're happy to have the response we have, and we're going to continue to filling it with everything we can as it goes through.
And it also, the 1,500 people that are getting it
Yes.
want to get it,
Yes.
right? So it makes sense that we didn't just sign everybody up automatically. So that's that balance. If we get a lot more people and they, especially if we're kind of being pushy about it, then we might not see that number as high.
Yeah. All right. Again, that was just following the same lines there. Social media is obviously a big one. Facebook is obviously the largest of all of them, but we are seeing other social medias that are gaining ground here. But Facebook is one that we focused a lot on, especially since I got here and Jenny started taking over most of the Facebook stuff at that time to get us going. Just looking at a year-to-year, the same period of time, year look, you can see all of our numbers are going up, our likes are going up, our followers are going up, our reaches are going up. Everything has continued to move. We're glad that the dislikes went down, even though that's not a huge drop. You know, for the most part, everything is continuing to rise and rise. And we're seeing more and more stuff come through, especially as we're adding more and more features. I mean, obviously, now that we're doing YouTube for the board meetings and some of our other video posts, we're able to then post those on our Facebook page, you know, and do a lot of cross stuff to get people to view and look at.
Well, I wonder if we have this many people on Facebook, if we should put a link on Facebook for the Pulse, so that while they're on Facebook looking for information from not Fort Mill School District resources about Fort Mill School District information, they might then start looking at the Pulse and getting that information that they're really looking for. And it's correct information.
That's one of the places we advertise to get people to sign up for the Pulse.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Okay.
We don't want to just put a link to that month's Pulse because then they wouldn't sign up for it and we wouldn't be able to track it.
No, a link to the
So
registration.
that's how we do that along with the website link. I think it's kind of interesting to see here, looking at some of the performing posts. You know, you look at 2019, we had the post that was fun with numbers, and that was the back to school post. We talked about how many kids we had, you know, that day compared to the year before. You're looking at a reach of about 9,000. Being what we just talked about, this is where we had a post that was talking about the free lunch program that was going to be coming up, and we had a reach of almost 25,000. So we're seeing, depending on what the story is, along with new, every new year, we're adding more and more people to it.
But again, if I understand it, we've got 9,500
Yes.
followers.
Yes.
So we're still only getting to, at best, half. And when you consider, you know, it's not every parent, and you know, probably a third of our students really getting touched through this.
Well, I think the other key thing to remember off that, though, is not just about how many have followed you. You have to look at the shares numbers, too. How many times they share a post.
Good point.
How many times they put it on their site, the thing gets put on another site. So
Yep.
that's where the reach comes in, because then you're starting to get a better idea of how far it's traveling. And that's really the key thing with, to be honest with you, social media is not how many people view it on your page, it's how many people view it on their friend's page, their mom's page, their kid's page.
I learned more about reach than I ever wanted to in the last 6 weeks.
I'm quite sure. Yeah. I mean, you want to help your followers because they're your initial people, the ones that are getting your information right off the bat, but they're also the key to share. So, you know, that's the other big part of social media, especially on Facebook. That's really important on Facebook. It's a little less important on Twitter and those kinds of things.
But having said that, it would be great if the majority of our families who use social media anyway were getting stuff directly from our site instead of counting on it being shared in a mom's group or something like that.
Well,
right?
and you're going to see some of that in the survey too.
Okay.
So I actually think there's more of that than you might believe. You're going to see in a little bit that social media is not necessarily the first stop for our parents.
Okay.
Twitter is similar. Twitter's another one that Jenny has worked with very hard to bring up, and you can see we're starting to see more impressions coming through, more visits. Again, Twitter is more of a quick release deal. You obviously can't put as much detail as you do in some of the other posts, so we also don't tweet in the middle of the night like some other people, so we're going to stay with where we're at here, but this is one we're working on as well.
So looking at that September number, does that mean that we have 33 less followers in September 2020 than we did in September 2019, or that we have lost, or we have a total of 33 new ones?
I believe that's the ones that were new for that month.
Okay.
We have a
And we had 33 less in September compared to what we had last.
No, you only had 33 new.
We
Which is
added,
down from
we added
21.
13 in September, we added 23.
Okay.
Oh, I'm sorry, I read it different. Sorry.
51 and 33.
Yes, we added 51 in that month, and we added 33, or we added 33 that month. Those numbers were lower than each other.
Right, because it was lower than 51. Okay.
Yes, that's a month snapshot, not everything that happened in between. You know, you think the communication guy would know not to smack the microphone, right? Instagram is another one. This is an interesting one because you can pull demographic data as well. We did with social media. And I don't remember if I touched on that on Facebook, but when you look at the populations, it is a much, much, much higher population of women versus men that are on our social media across the board. And even then, the ages break down to about the same too. That 35 to 44 is the largest bracket. But again, we're seeing climbs here as well too. You know, and again, these Instagram versus Twitter versus Facebook, they're all very unique to the types of things you can post on them. So they're going to reach different markets, different demographics, and they're also you're going to utilize them differently.
Let me just ask you a question about Twitter. Do we have our schools following the Fort Mill School District?
We have asked them to do that, correct, Jenny? We've asked all of our schools to link to our pages, and we try to link to their pages every time that we get them in. That's something we've tried to bounce back and forth. Now, not all of our schools have all of these social media. Some may just have a Facebook, some may have all three. Obviously, high schools usually have all three, and that kind of tapers a little bit as you get down. It also depends on the principal's like or dislike of social media, too. Because we have not standardized that throughout the district.
Well, my thinking was if you have, let's say, a new family, they've got elementary age kids, they might be following their elementary school, but some information district-wide would be applicable to them.
Yep.
So if they didn't realize that the Fort Mill School District, in reading some of these comments, if they didn't realize that the Fort Mill School District has a different Twitter page, then it would help if that principal is retweeting it at a minimum, the Fort Mill School District information.
And
that's applicable to that school.
And we've asked that, and we do that too. You'll see a lot of times on our page where we're retweeting stuff that's come out for our individual schools, stories, that kind of stuff. So we're starting to really develop those reciprocal relationships, and we're going to continue to try to expand them. All right, now the other big part of this is the survey. Obviously, you need to ask people what they think, what they feel, and get the information back from them. And this is where Rhodes came in. They were wonderful in helping us develop the survey. They were the ones who were responsible for sending it out. They collected the data back and then provided this presentation to us. So it was nice to have that third party look at it. And again, they'll help me out with any questions that I can't come up with answers for. First off, a little quick look at it. The survey was sent out to just under 20,000 people. We targeted all of our parents, we targeted all of our staff, not just the ones who have Fort Mill addresses. We pulled our bus drivers who had, their personal addresses, our nutrition staff. We grabbed all of that. We provided it to Rhodes so they could send it out. It was, pretty good on the survey for us. As far as getting it out to people, we didn't have too much of an issue. There was a little bit at the start that things got trapped in the district mail servers. But we ended up correcting that and getting it sent out multiple times so that we could ensure that it got out to everybody and hopefully they got a chance to see it. Key thing that Rhodes did for us also too, after the first one went out with the click-through rate, they resent it again to everybody who hadn't done it. And then they resent it again to everybody who hadn't done it. So they really tried to get everybody involved in this. We really tried to push for it. We were hoping to get as many back as we could. We saw some really good percentage rates. We were higher than industry standards for the click rate on all of the send-outs. So that was a nice pull. They even broke it down for us and told us who was looking at their desktop, mobile, that kind of stuff. All right, again, some of the highlights here. We ended up with roughly just under 4,800 total responses. There were questions on the survey that were scaled questions as well as free-form answers, so we're going to see a little bit of both of those. 3 emails were sent out. The response rate was 90% for parents, 9 were teachers, 6 were staff. You look at that and go, that doesn't add up. Some of our teachers are parents. So they were able to go in there too. We targeted audience again, formal parents and staff, teachers, administrators, everybody. Some of the strengths we saw that were really good, and I was glad to see, 72% of the responders found that our communications were very useful. Obviously, anything we send out, we're hoping it is useful. We don't want to send out anything frivolous. There's a lot of stuff in here that we're going to touch on a little bit with comments, but a couple of things that I really wanted to point out were, of the 80% of the responders ranked the district's responsiveness at an 8 or higher. It's hard to see in the glass there, but on a scale of 1 to 10. I think that's pretty good. I think if we're pulling an 8 out of a 10 on responsiveness, that could include the things when they're sending us separate questions, the information we're getting out. I think we're doing pretty well there, because that's one of the key things we try to do in our department, is when we get questions, we try to answer them as soon as they can. We don't always get there, depending on when we get them, but we really try to do that. On a scale of 1 to 10, close to 87% of the responders rank the form of communications effectiveness as an 8 or higher. That's another key thing to me. Again, when we send stuff out, we want it to be the information they need and that they're getting it correctly. Opportunities we're going to talk a little bit about at the end. We've got some great suggestions from Rhodes on what our some next steps are, but just to touch on some of that stuff, emphasizing consistency and transparency through all of our channels. So, making sure the messages we put out, while they can't all go everywhere in the exact same form, making sure that they get on there in the form that is correct for that channel. Promoting other channels, that's another big one. You'll see in the comments. There's a great suggestion in one of the comments, but we definitely want to get people information out there to say, we have X, Y, Z. So choose the one that fits you. Don't not be on it because you don't know we have it. Don't be on it if it's not the right one. Discussing communication, best practices with our teachers and staff. More media training for our teachers and staff. That's something that we've wanted to do for a while. We just need to get the logistics put together for it. And then continue to remain positive and responsive, especially in time of crisis. Obviously, that's a big one. We've been dealing with now for several months, and we're going to continue to work hard at that.
And looking at your responders, you said that 90% were parents and 9% teachers, 6% staff. Could I, as a employee, have chosen to fill it out as a parent?
You could choose correct me if I'm wrong, but you could choose multiple roles.
You could, because I'm really concerned that we only had 15% of our employees.
And I'll be honest with you, that concerned me too. And I spoke with Rhodes about that, and we discussed about possibly resending this out. I'll be honest with you, I was highly disappointed in that. And at first I thought, well, maybe they just missed it. But then we started looking at the multiple resends and resending it to the people who didn't get it. So I was a little bothered that we didn't get a higher staff response, I'll be honest. Now, the percentages are also skewed because we have a much higher number of parents than that. So we have to really start, we'd have to drill in further to see where that's at. So at first blush, I was a little concerned about it, but then I started to think about...
Well, we do have more parents than staff, so it makes sense.
Yeah, in total numbers, you're probably talking, we're dealing with...
Well, 17,000 versus 2,000.
Yeah, exactly.
Right.
Yeah.
So
But I want to make sure that an employee didn't have to choose between saying I'm an employee or a parent, that they could choose both.
But they still only fill it out one time.
Right.
So they can't answer it differently. As a parent, this is how I feel. As a teacher, this is how I feel, right? They couldn't fill it out twice with different hats on, is my understanding.
Now, in some of the free form, they could have made clarifications for that.
Sure.
And we did see some...
You fill out separate email addresses, so they probably could have filled it out twice. Unless there's some sort of...
No, it only went to the email addresses that we had on file. So, like, if you're a parent, Blackboard would have sent it out. When we pulled the roster, it should have included them twice. Well, they could have, actually.
Yeah, to his point.
Actually, could have. They very well could have.
Yeah.
Because when we pulled the rosters out, they have different...
But I don't know that it was, that they necessarily...
Yeah, I don't know that everybody would have logged on and done that. Yeah.
Okay.
This is a really interesting thing here. This breaks down the percentages from the survey of what people are using. And I'm going to flip to my page because my glasses do not see that far. Yeah. Get to it. There were some things I really wanted to point out on this page. And I think one of them was, to start with the top of the left side there, text is actually something we haven't used a lot of.
I didn't even know we had it.
We do. As part of our Blackboard communication system, we have text as part of it. Now, somebody has to have filled in that they want to get their number into the SMS field when they do all of their data and information. But when we looked at it, though, even though we don't use it a lot, 52% found the updates very useful who took the survey. So we're not even sending out that many, but half the people who get them thought they were good. So I think that's one area we're going to look at including more of that messaging.
Well, or do you only send a text when there's a cancellation.
Oh, sure.
Or there's something, because you need people to know it. And so that's probably the quickest way to get to people. And so I wouldn't want to overdo it with just general updates.
That's what I'm saying. We haven't been using that a lot, even in the emergency situations.
Okay.
Part of that is because of the character limitations. We, through the system, we only get, I think, 120, 160 for emergency.
Okay.
But what we started doing recently was sending out a text that says, "School's canceled. Check your email for more details."
Perfect.
And that, I think, is where we started seeing this usefulness coming. So I think we're going to look more into that.
Well, that makes sense too. If parents are winding down, at the end of the day, or employees, they're not thinking about checking their email before they go to bed, especially not knowing there's a water main break, right? So I think that the text message in that case, everybody has their phone next to them, in that case.
Well, it goes ding, and you can't help but notice.
Right, and then they're more than happy to look for the email for more
Unless you
information.
have the ding turned off.
And that's also, too, where the app comes in. The app, because it can receive instantaneous messaging without the character limitation. They can even get our recorded voicemails. We'll come to that same thing as well, too. I want to get that up as well. And what we saw here is that 55% of the people did not have the app downloaded. A lot of them were unaware the exact app existed. So we definitely want to raise that up. Social media, in general, 60% use Facebook as the primary social media. That's obviously what we thought was going to be the case. 43% of the responders use Facebook to check news and updates. So half of the people that responded use Facebook, less than half use Facebook to check for news and updates. And I'm going to contrast that by something here in a second. But
I hope the inference is that they're checking the Fort Mill School District Facebook page and not somebody else's.
sometimes.
That doesn't have.
Because the next one down says almost 80% do not follow FMSD on other social media channels. So if they're not getting on that one they follow, it's usually Facebook, they're probably not getting through.
Well, and unfortunately, 50% are not following, right? And when reviewing, I read the comment that I do see that a lot, that people are like, I don't want to have to go to social media to get information. My husband, who was in here, is not on social media, and he'll never get anything that way.
And I think this right here, what I wanted to contrast that with, is under the email portion, 98% of the responders use the emails that we send out to check for the news and updates. So less than half go to Facebook to get it, 98% get it through our emails. So I think what we're looking at here, Facebook and social media in general is a good reinforcement tool, but it's not the best direct contact tool. And I think that's always been the case, but that's something that we've seen over time, have been a little bit of a fight here and there. We have definitely a segment of our population that Facebook is the only place they will go for anything. They won't even call the school to ask a question. They'll send it to a person who they don't even know is on the other end and give me all the information about their kid and ask me a question. And, we have a hard time responding to that, but we try to do our best whether they come up with the best information
Send
we
it
can.
to the right place. Yeah.
So we'd rather continue focusing mainly on our direct information and using our social media as a reinforcement tool for the information. Website is an area that's kind of one that we haven't addressed a lot. Jenny, again, has worked hard on the website since I first got here, but I think it's getting close to the time we're going to need to look at a platform. A lot of the comments we're talking about the navigation of the website, how you get around it. To be honest with you, the look is something that we need to look at and make more modernized, make easier to use. Not a lot of people are using it. 34% checking the website weekly, 35% are checking it a few times a month. So we're not seeing a lot of traffic there. Now, I think the one thing that it does not show in that number, that 34 to the 35, is they probably don't think about when they click on a link in a lot of the emails we send out that we know they're opening, that counts as visiting the website. So there's a little bit of a disconnect there. I think they're probably there a lot more than they realize they are. But, when you ask them, do you go to the website?
They don't go directly to the website.
They don't say yes.
Are the analytics of the website increasing, users increasing over time or decreasing?
We still have to pull more of those and look at them page by page, and a lot of that's going to be part of possibly the next step where we do a full web audit to see what pages are useful, not useful, that kind of thing. So we haven't really dived into that yet.
But again, I think if a parent is looking for something, they tend, if they go to the website, they're going to go to the school website, not the Fort Mill School District website. Because I'm interested in like the car rider line at my school, not necessarily, and I know it'd be too hard to find it through your website.
And I think it depends on what you're looking. If you're looking for specific school information like that, yeah, they're going to hit the school website. If it's something more global, like our, our COVID return to school plan or something like that, they're coming.
The calendar or
Calendar. What we do a lot of times too, though, so that we can have the correct information out there, when we send something out or we put something on the web that needs to be tied to the schools, we create a banner, we send it to them and say, here's the URL to the district webpage that this banner should link to. So no matter what you're looking, if it's something we need all parents to see information-wise, and of course we'll email it out too, but we'll have that banner up there where people can, no matter what school they go to, if they click on the banner that says, COVID information, it's taking them to the district webpage. So, that's one thing that we worked out with the webmasters. I think it's done really well to make sure we have the correct information going through. All right, comments. That's always the most fun part here. Actually was pretty happy with the comments. And again, I had nothing to do with pulling these. So I overall was pretty happy. And I saw some things that were really eye-opening, the areas that we could work with. Of course, the very first one, the FMS communications across the channels are very transparent, and it's appreciated. I'd like to see that. We try to put all the information we can into it so that it's clear and concise to start with. This was a funny one. The survey just made me realize that I'm missing out on a lot of other types opportunities of communication. And we saw that down. The very next one. Signing up for text alerts and download the app. So we know that's a big area that we need to work with. Again, unaware of some of the stuff that's going on. I think some of the teacher comments we got, I feel like the community gets updates about what's happening within our schools prior to district personnel receive it. As a teacher, I'm often lost and don't know the same things as the parents. I think there's twofold to that. I do think that is an area that we have to work on. And that is something we have talked about. Dr. Epson and I have had multiple conversations. Oftentimes, whenever we have information that's going out, we send it out to the staff first, and then we send it out to parents following. I think what happens, though, is that we send it out during the day. Teachers can't check their email during the day. Parents can. So they're not getting it until later in the afternoon. But it may be information that we needed to get out quicker than waiting to the evening. So, but there are lots of opportunities for us to do that. One of those is the board highlights that we send out. Like tonight, that information will go out to our staff and, of course, our media contacts. There's a lot of that information the parents won't get until tomorrow if it's something that needs to come out. So there is work to be done there. There were some comments. I don't know if it was this page, it might be the next one. Yeah, these are all pretty similar. COVID-19, obviously that got added to the survey file and everything. For the most part, I think all of the comments were pretty positive. The dashboard was pretty well received. Transparency and communications. I think the one at the bottom is probably the one that's the most interesting. That people are overwhelmed with the amount of email because it's not just me sending out as the schools. So that's something that we may need to look at in the future. It's kind of hard to designate a day where they send, I send, because there's just information that just doesn't work like that. But there's got to be some ways we can maybe help out with a little bit of the overload.
Well, sometimes too, you're getting emails. In my case, I've got kids at 3 different schools.
Absolutely.
I've got 4 high school teachers, 7 or 8 middle school teachers, and 2 elementary teachers. So if each of them are sending me a weekly update, and then I'm getting one from the district and each of the schools, that's a lot of emails.
Oh, yeah.
So I think sometimes just by having multiple children or children in different schools will add to that, whereas that's not necessarily something we can.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's something I've heard from parents a lot through most of my career, to be honest with you, is that you always hear both ends of the spectrum. It's you guys have got to stop sending me so many emails, you're over communicating, and then the very next day you'll get the one from the person who says, I'm not getting enough information, can you please send me some more of this, or can I get this together? It's a very balance, I think, that's a hard balance that we're going to have to continue to work on and see what we can do. Because I know as a parent too, I'm getting emails from teacher, getting emails from the principal, getting emails from the district. I even get emails from some of the other staff that have access to accounts. So I think we're going to continue to work on that. Some of it at the school level, we'll have to work with our principals and see if they can come up with some best practices. And that goes back to that training portion we talked about before too.
Yeah, but I think though we should always err on the side of over communicating.
Oh, absolutely.
Because I can always delete that.
Yeah.
But if I'm looking for it and I don't know where to go, and that's what a lot of our parents are saying, they don't know where to find what information. it's better to find that email than it is to search for hours for something that might not be there.
Yeah, and that's the great thing about it is that with most of our emails, where if it's something you need to pull up, we're going to put the links in it, that kind of thing too, so we can get you in there directly.
I think about it in terms of, as you do some additional analysis, is how do you be intentional about the type of information that should come from a teacher, a principal,
Yes.
basically teacher, school, or district, right? Because to me, that it probably should be different types of information,
Well,
and maybe the teacher and the principal also send certain district information, maybe, but it should be, if that's the case, it should be, by golly, the exact same,
Yeah.
right, replicated, instead of a customized school version and a customized class version. I don't know, it seems like there's like a decision tree or something.
Yeah. And that's something we'll establish more of. We've started with that, and again, there were a lot of things that I wanted to do when I first got here. One of them was standardizing where the communication came from, as far as, especially when it came to district level stuff, and that's something that direction I worked on very hard. We determined that like school closings or cancellations, any of that stuff was always going to come from us, from out of our office. If it was going to get reiterated by a principal or a staff member, that was fine, but the initial communications were always going to come out of us, and we're going to do more of that and look at more of that to structure.
Ms. Spears, in your list, you also need we also need PTO updates are also in there, so you're getting
True.
weekly updates of everything that Ms. McCarter mentioned, plus PTO
And coaches and,
Yeah,
the band update, I mean, there's a lot.
there's a lot.
Finally, some of the last part of the comments was improvements people made comments about that we could make. My most favorite one on here is the force people to read with 3 question marks. I cannot do that. That is something that I wish I could, but I can't. But there is some great stuff on here. Again, reiterating some of the topics we've already talked about, the communication options that we need to get out there. There was one here with a single source of truth. I don't know that you can truly create a single source of truth, since, as you see, people have different areas they go to get their information. So that's a little bit tougher, but I think where you can do that is consistency in messaging across all of your avenues.
But I'm wondering if that, again, is referring to somebody else's Facebook page, that they're getting information instead of going directly to the Fort Mill School District to find information about the Fort Mill School District.
Yeah, and that's a tough challenge. And I think, again, the way we can combat that is to make sure that the messaging we're doing is the same, whether you're on Facebook, whether you're on Twitter, whether you're getting it in the email, whether you're getting it through the pulse, that kind of stuff.
And I love certain people who shall remain nameless when they point out, oh, might you go check the district page for that information, or,
Yes. We always love to help.
guide them back in the right direction.
For us. Yep. Obviously, there was a lot of stuff. Again, this teacher comment was talked about here, where we're not getting information to teachers first, and I think that is something we are going to continue to work on. And then, of course, standardizing updates where it says, i.e., phone call first, followed by an app, followed by text. We don't really have a way to sequence those. A lot of the messaging systems we use combine a lot of them, but right now we are doing. We generally send our email or call first. Then Jenny or Katie will update the website and then or update social media and go from there. So we kind of have a structure for that. I think a lot of it is just where you're at when the messaging comes out. Is what you see
Where you're
first.
at in the alphabet.
Yeah, that's it.
And that does make a difference, believe it or not.
It does.
I get it before Krista's going to get it because he gets before us.
And I get it after everybody.
That's because you got too many of them.
I know.
So come back.
It gets clogged up.
All right, and this is my last slide for the evening, since I know everybody likes to know when we hit one of those. But this is the audit recommendations. This is some stuff that Rhodes pulled together for us, and we're going to continue to work with them on some of these. Again, they've been great through this whole process. It's been really wonderful to be able to hand this off and focus on everything else that we've had going on, and they're going to help us out with some of these things too. So again, some of the things that popped up were continuing themes, were the new parent stuff, pulling together like maybe a welcome kit to help people get aware of channels. Obviously that would go to our current parents too, but that'd be something nice that we had on our new area that says click here to find out every way you can get something from Fort Mill School District. People coming in and looking at it. Survey groups or focus groups is something that we're considering doing. That's another thing that they would be able to help us out with, whether it's going to be a staff group or a parent group. Getting a little more one-on-one action than just a broad survey, being able to actually have some conversations. Of course, some of that's going to depend on when it's easier to do that.
Isn't in the, I'll say job description, but duties of the communications department for external and internal communication?
Yeah, it's both. Yep. Yep. And we are trying to keep them as consistent as possible. The market research is another big one. Obviously, there are a lot of districts who do a lot of great things, and we'd love to hear and see some of those and see which ones would fit and mold here. Obviously, I keep in touch with my counterparts in the other York school districts. I have friends and stuff that are in different districts. I'm part of the Inspiro group as the vice chair to get ideas and stuff, but we never really have done a full dive to see what some of the other districts are actually using or working with. So the Rhodes has offered to help us out with that, so that's something else we're going to work with. Optimization of the district website. That's something that the IT department and I are going to be getting together on and figuring out what may be a possible platform change or what changes we need to make to our current website to make it more user-friendly and easy. And along with that, to be honest with you, there will probably be some soon stuff that we're going to talk about that may be some changing to make it more visually appealing, like district colors and that kind of thing. I think my PowerPoint's a little bit better too. And then, of course, teacher and staff communication, best practices, seminars, that kind of stuff, the training that we want to get back to as soon as we're getting to that point. We may even look at doing some of that virtually if we can. Of course, you know, our teachers and our administrators are under such a time crunch right now, we'll have to look at where we can fit that in, but I think that would be another key thing.
The one thing I hope you can tease out as you do whatever kind of focus groups and things, both with teachers and parents, is what information they want to know, because we saw the click rates, we know we do polls, we talked about the gazillion things between the teachers, the principals, the schools, the coaches, the PTOs. So we are pumping out boatloads of information. Yet half the conversations that I was in during campaign season was about transparency and information. And so somehow there's a disconnect in what I guess people really want to know about that apparently we're not talking about. I'm not sure what it is. And so trying to tease that out a little bit I think would be helpful.
And I think that's where those more smaller setting conversations with the focus groups can get better than the survey can, because the survey you're just going to get with a broad swath again, and then you're basically going to say, well, here's this huge pile they're asking for, we're already giving out all this. But it's better to have that individual conversation for them. Well, that's it for me, unless you have any questions for myself or my friends from Rhodes.
So when they're talking about comparing us to industry standards, are they comparing us to other school districts or, businesses in general?
So there's a couple of different layers of that. You can actually look at the industry standard for average for everybody who uses a specific program like Constant Contact or something along those lines. Then you can actually get layered data for, like I had it broken out where I gave you guys the specific data for educational, which was the K through 12 systems, which was a different percentage than just the industry standard for Constant Contact altogether. So yeah, you can get the information we had up there was geared toward both. So we had them two different ones on different slides.
Sometimes you need to benchmark if there's not enough other school districts that are using this type of survey. So I wasn't sure if you were benchmarking it against businesses or actually against schools.
Yeah, I think it was benchmarks against either.
It was schools.
Yeah.
Excellent. Any other questions?
I was going to ask the Rhodes folks, in your work, not just with us, but with other districts, do you find any, you talk about the lack of transparency, that feeling of is there, with social media exploding over the last 10 years, I find it very challenging as an organization to get ahead of it often. They know about some at school sometime before we do, parents, or think they know. They may have bad information. Do you, so we're not unique, I guess I'm asking you, in the challenge. I mean, we're as I don't know how we can be any more transparent than we are, but I get where people would think so if they didn't know it first, or the teachers always are mad because the parents get it first. Parents, it doesn't matter. The boy, is this common? I get what a challenging area for all organizations now, and particularly when I don't know. Some people think the truth's one thing, and the truth's sometimes there's not the truth. It's my truth, and this is your truth.
Your opinion of the truth.
Yeah. Is that accurate?
Yes, sir. I think, unfortunately, in the era of communication that we're in, there is a lot of spin, unfortunately.
That's a good word, right?
Also, to Joe's point, it's the cadence in which you check your updates. If you're going to check your Facebook page before an email and you see maybe other parents commenting, it may sway your opinion on what truly is transparent. I think also within the time frame that we're in, when things are changing federally that then are trickled down to the districts, and you're having to react, there may have this impression that the district isn't being transparent when in fact you're just reacting to the direction that you've been given. So at least from our perspective, we think you guys are doing a great job, and the feedback has been predominantly positive. I think it's a challenge, especially a large growing district like yours, that is just going to be continued. That's something that you guys will have to continue to watch and maintain, but I think overall it is not a red flag.
That's great. All right.
All right. Thank you very much.
Thank you. All right, so now we're going to get a couple of updates on new school openings. Dr. Mosley. And just begin with.
Yeah, we're going to talk about a couple of schools here. The latest two to open, or too soon to be soon to open.
So first of all, I want to confess it's good for the soul when Mr. Burke's survey came to my MySpace. I had a hard time manipulating that. On my flip phone, it's really hard to text, so that's why I didn't get back to you, Joe.
Please give me your handle.
Just fax me, Tommy. Just fax me.
Right, my dial-up service takes too long. We're really excited about what's about to embark on a great journey, closure for some. I've been shadowing principals, and I love the idea of two principals serving in one school. It's kind of a unique thing that's happening with River Trail and Kingstown, and then Dobies as well. So we're looking forward to having Otter Country. That's obviously the mascot, and having a home of their own. So I'm going to give you a little update of where we are. I'd like to welcome you to the family, and I'll add you to my space as well. So just a couple of dates to look at. Substantial completion. We're on track for November 25th for River Trail. We say we're on track. There's still some landscaping things. There's some paving. There's some odds and ends. And when I say this punch list, that'll continue for about a year and a half to cover everything. But as far as the bulk of the work, we're right at the finish line at this point. Computer installation, OSF final inspection set for December 3rd, 2nd and 3rd. The punch list will continue after that, and then we'll have a final clean. And as those of you that helped with Riverview, when we say final clean, there's industry clean and then there's sport mill clean. And so there's other stuff to do, and the teachers will be rolling up their sleeves and hard at work for all those days. So with that said, I'd like to congratulate and just kind of do a shout out to our teachers and staff. They've been working really hard, not even just with all the stuff with the pandemic and virtual and hybrid and face-to-face, but also understanding they're moving again. And as a teacher, as an educator, we know your classroom is your nest. And so we're disturbing their nest to move it to a great building, fantastic building, and they're looking forward to that, but it's going to take some effort. So it's going to be all hands on deck type of week, especially towards the end. So let me kind of break down what we're doing there. December 16th in the afternoon, we have a moving company that will be picking up things from Dobies and from Kingstown, supplies. I'm sorry?
That's the Wednesday before
That's
they're out of
Wednesday,
school.
right.
Okay, that's what I was.
So just think through this thing if you're time-wise.
So after school, that will happen, not during school, which means teachers are packing as we're going. So understand they are teaching, and then as soon as students are gone, they're rolling up their sleeves, going to work, making sure that their stuff is ready to go. On December 18th, that afternoon, all the things should be moved by that time, late afternoon, into River Trail. So when I say moved in, there'll be boxes, and not things taken out. So that's where the real work starts for the teachers. The week of the 21st, the punch list work still continues, but as far as our staff, on the 21st and the 22nd, that's when teachers will be unloading. Now, I say that, we're going to give them opportunity after school beginning on the 18th, maybe even on the 17th, depends on when some of the boxes and what rooms are unloaded first. And then obviously in the weekend, there'll be opportunities for teachers to come in as well. Any questions as far as that timeline?
Do we have a need for additional boots on the ground to help with?
Yeah, Mr. Ollinger has a really good idea, and I don't know if you're really, is this the time to share that, or I think it's a great idea that you had.
So we've asked that the River Trail Administration, they put together to think through every possible job task that needs to be done to do like a Sign of Genius or a Google form, and they're going to send that out to the district office as well as to other people in the district that may have some time. So we know if we need to go on Monday the 21st from 8 to 11 or 1 to 4 or whatever they need. It could be helping with the teacher set up a classroom. It could be putting shields on desks. It could be just breaking down boxes the teachers have unpacked and moving them out, hanging up fire evacuation maps, whatever the task is, just to think through as many things as possible. So they've got to work on that. I think we're going to send that out after the Thanksgiving break to the staff to do. And you're welcome to come.
The board's asking to be included.
Yeah, we would be more than happy to help.
We'll send it to you. We'll be glad to have you go.
Yeah, and we live and learn, so as we, a mid-year move is not ideal, obviously, but learning from our previous move into Riverview, we found that there was a lot of manpower, women power there, but some of us were standing around because we didn't want to be in the way, and we didn't know what to ask and how to get out of the way. So this kind of makes it a little more organized.
Honestly, opening the box, taking the stuff out, putting it on a flat surface is huge.
Right.
Get the debris out of the room, and you'll be amazed what can happen because of that. So.
Again, it's exciting time for them to be a faculty as a whole in one place. So we're looking forward to that. Any more questions as far as?
So can you give me the logistics of, I'm a teacher moving from Debbie's Bridge to the new school, and on the 16th you're going to pack me up and go. So what am I doing on the 17th and 18th while those children are still coming?
So yeah, the key word there is pack up. What is being packed up is based on what the teacher wants to pack up at that time early. So they know the units ahead of already, so they know what they're going to be teaching on those next days. So that stuff will remain, and then they'll pack those up on Friday.
So they've got two opportunities. They get as much done as they can on the 16th, but if they've got the last few things that they need for the 17th and 18th, and their personal desk items and all that, that can be done in that second wave on the 18th.
That's correct. And some things will be moved by the teacher themselves. The heavy boxes and things, we don't want them moving. So the principals will be very specific in their instructions on what to move and what not to move.
Okay.
So they'll still be in the class on the 17th and the 18th
And
with some minimal stuff sitting around, but still doing
skeleton crew.
right. But still doing whatever the instruction was that was planned for that day. Yeah.
That's correct.
Well, sometimes right before holiday, there's some other fun activities that you do on an elementary level that you wouldn't need your whole library of books that you brought.
Exactly.
Okay.
There'll still be learning going on for sure. Yeah. Anything else? We also have a middle school coming on board soon. Let me give you a couple of the highlights for that. So Forest Creek Middle School, the home of the Coyotes. Principal McNeil's done a really good job with mascot. We'll be rolling that out to you soon. We want to hold back a little bit because we're doing our branding of that. So everything is being packaged. Mr. Burke is the gatekeeper for that so that we know everything's coming through. His office is the right mascot, the right colors, the right Pandrones. And we finalized that, so we'll be giving you a short presentation on that soon. I don't want to steal her thunder, so that'll be a neat thing. Final completion, June 15th. That's the target date, and we're on target for that date. I'll tell you where we are currently. We're about 95% complete when it comes to site utilities, 50% complete when it comes to paving. There's two separate types of paving. There's light duty, heavy duty. Heavy duty is for the buses in that loop. We don't have to do that for like the parking lots and things like that. So light duty is 50% complete. Football press box bleachers are complete. The steel is about 85% complete. Interior, exterior masonry, 90% complete. That's the big one. You need that up, and then you need your roof. We'll get to that shortly. The brick is scheduled for next week to start. That's when it starts looking like a school, not a blue dollhouse, as that might look like now. Standing and metal seam roofing is 70% complete, and the flat roofing just started a couple days ago and is about 15% complete. So we're looking at being dried in by the end of November, and then we'll have inspections that come periodically through that. Once again, we think that everything will be complete by the 15th of June. That's what we're shooting for. Questions on that? All right, that's exciting now. That's the building portion, and you think that's a lot of work, and that's just a small piece of the picture. So Ms. McGinn is going to take team as far as our plan transition into that.
Well, good evening and congratulations to all of you that were elected and re-elected. It's so exciting. We know we have great leadership here and support, and we appreciate it so very much. So with Forest Creek Middle School, as we prepare to staff that, it's an unusual time. I've done this several times and worked with principals and staff through many new openings. This one presents some unique challenges because of our situation with virtual and the situation that we're in with COVID. So again, I thought it's just a lot of firsts, that's for sure. So what we're going to do is we'll get the enrollment projections from Dale Holden, moving all the students up into their middle schools, get the enrollments that should be there, with just kind of put Fort Mill Virtual Academy aside, and let's just pretend that we're in a normal year. And so we'll first look at it that way based on their attendance areas and figure out what the staffing needs at each grade level, etc., are for each school, assuming that all students are coming back are going to their new assignment. That's the first phase of determining how many teachers we need. And that happened this week, actually. And then on November the 23rd, we'll send out preference forms in a letter to all middle school staff members, and they'll reply with a Google Doc, saying which of their first, second, and third preference of middle school would be. At the same time, we are running the point system of experience and longevity and degrees and all that staff members have. That's kind of a tiebreaker sometimes that we can go to if we're trying to make a decision about placement. Of course, whatever is best to get the best balance of each staff is what is the fallback. But that is just a piece of data. So we're doing that now. Google Forms are ready. The letter's ready to go. I just tweaked it to describe the three-phase process that will happen this year. Usually it's in two phases. First phase, we send it out based on just the numbers right now, everybody moving up. Second phase, when we get the growth projections, then we relook at that, and teachers have a chance to, once we figure out how many new teachers we're going to need in the schools based on growth, then we kind of reallocate staff or add new positions or project new positions, and staff can opt to go or ask to go to another school. And so that kind of settles out. But this year, not knowing what's going to happen with Fort Mill Virtual Academy students, it's kind of going to be a third phase. Once we get commitment from students on whether they want to be part of a Fort Mill Virtual Academy next year, then we'll have to make a third adjustment, and we'll have teachers have the option to apply for the Virtual Academy, and then we'll have to shift adjust again. So teachers are going to have to realize, and principals, that this is tentative. This is your tentative assignment, and with growth, that all that's normal. But then with Fort Mill Virtual Academy, and depending on where, of course, the vaccine is and parents' comfort level with returning, we don't know yet. And so how do we start to plan? There will be a survey going out. We wanted to get the high school surveys and whether they wanted to come back to high school, back to face-to-face or not. We wanted that to kind of settle down. But Emily McQuay, Dr. McQuay is working on a survey to go out and kind of get a pulse about what people are thinking. It won't be a commitment. It'll just be kind of a pulse of, would you be, are you thinking about, would you like to, continue in a virtual setting or not? And so that'll kind of give us an idea, just, kind of basic idea. And then later in the spring, we'll have to have a commitment if they want to go or not, because we can't allocate staff to an academy for next year without having some kind of commitment from parents and students. So there'll be a process for them to do that.
Where do you expect that survey?
Which survey?
The general.
November. It's ready to go. It's close to, we're looking at the 30th? The 30th, November 30th. That's the survey from the Virtual Academy to all students regarding their experience. It's going to have also some questions just about climate and that kind of thing, how we can improve, and also their interest in continuing. And it'll be very clear, this is not a commitment, this is not signing up, but just their interest and to give us a sense of where we are with that. That'll be November 30th. It'll also give us some data on our current reality with our improvement plans and that kind of thing for the academy and the hybrid model that we've been dealing with.
So just to clarify, that November 30 survey will ask about their potential desire to continue in the academy for the 2021-2022 school year.
Yes.
And then the high school.
That'll go to everybody.
Has been, has that started?
That's already complete.
That's completed?
That's complete.
Numbers to show?
Right, the last day was the 6th, I think, November 6th?
Yeah, it's been done for a week.
Yeah, it's been done. That part was done where they requested to stay virtual or go back to the high school heights.
Updates on that as far as the increasing virtual or increasing?
I think we had around 300 returning.
So 300 increase. Well, 300 people coming from virtual.
Decreasing in the academy, the high school version of the academy.
Which is a lot. I got to think about how many were at the high school level.
It was.
Yeah, percentage. Well, I wonder what percentage.
It went from 1,200 to 900.
So a quarter.
Virtual academy high school went from 1,200 to 900?
Yeah, approximately.
Thank you, Mike. Yeah. So again, November 30th, we've got there's so much going on.
So, in thinking, I guess I'm thinking, I have a little bit of the HR hat on at the moment. In thinking in terms of the planning for the opening for Forest Creek, but also then having to come back and potentially shake things up again because of Virtual Academy, would we benefit to plan that Virtual Academy in the process at the same time, or is it?
I think that's what the survey is going to tell us, the 30th. If we get an overwhelming, we all want to stay virtual, or if we get an overwhelming, I think we're going to know, that's going to give us an idea of that contingency, that we need to plan for. So again, it's always a tentative assignment because we always have this massive growth that fluctuates things anyway. And generally, with attrition and retirements, all those things, it kind of just works out. This is just another little monkey wrench that we'll just have to work through, and the timing of the commitment and what we want that academy to look like and what we can afford to do, for next year, and kind of where we are with this virus. I think next year, my opinion is it's just going to be kind of a messy year for the academy, kind of another scaled down version of what we're doing now, just kind of like the high school students going back. I think we're going to have a lot wanting to come back to the face-to-face, but I think we're going to have some that are still going to be until the virus and the second dose of the virus, and it really rolls out to children. I think we're going to have this year of still a good number wanting virtual. And this is just Marty McGinn's opinion right now. But I think we have to kind of plan for that. And then I think in the third year, the next year, 22, 23, or it's 23, 24, I guess, then I think, no, 22. I think then we will be poised to really see what a virtual academy sustainable, will look like.
And we haven't talked a lot about that because we're trying to work. We think next year is going to be a transition year. That third year out, it may look very different than what we're doing now. We're looking at what other districts are doing.
Right.
It could be a lot of things.
Does it make sense to keep one? How many kids? How
It could be a school of choice. It could be a lot of
It could
things.
be a program, it could be a school of choice, it could be a district charter. I mean, there are a lot of options and exactly. And Emily's doing Dr. McClay's doing a wonderful job collecting information and models, and we'd love to go visit some and just see how they operate even outside of South Carolina, not just inside. But we really kind of have a handle on what's going on in South Carolina. That can be for another time than right now. But as far as the timeline goes, I think we're poised with the initial pulse of what folks and parents are thinking, and then the idea of finding out what teachers, if there was no virtual, where they want to go, and then we'll place everybody, them knowing that could change with growth, like it always does, and then that third factor of the virtual academy and the number of virtual students. And the number of virtual students kind of might balance out with the growth, and so it may just kind of work out more like normal than I think, but maybe not.
But that assignment of virtual is not unique to the middle school. Right?
No.
So the placement to the middle school is unique because of the opening.
Right.
But the high school and the elementary also will have
Exactly.
the same kind of situation of deciding in-person versus virtual teaching.
Exactly.
So when you send out the request form for choice, teachers typically will rank 1, 2, 3
Right.
For the middle school choice. Can't virtual be an option for them? So instead of having to go back to them and say, who's interested in virtual, can't that be an option?
We've talked about that.
You could then just say, if virtual is not an option, or if we're not going to do virtual next year based upon numbers, your number 2 will become your default number 1.
Right.
Then you're not going back to them again.
Right. And what we talked about was adding it as an additional question, because if we don't, because we found out with the elementaries, I wish I'd had a 4th choice because of the 11 elementary. So we have 3, and so we can certainly add their interest in that. But we also want to make sure with the virtual that there's an application process and there's some vetting to make sure that we have folks that are really going to have high, a lot of skills in that.
So it's almost like in-person, rank your schools.
Right.
If virtual is a choice, would you want to be virtual?
Right.
So it's not in sequence order mixed in with the other 3. It's here's your order of schools. On a scale of 1 to 5, how much are you interested in virtual? Right.
And that
That's 2 different kind of questions to me. But
I think you can prioritize it because there are a lot of teachers that don't get their first choice.
Right.
So even with the application process, whether they chose number 1 or not, it doesn't make a difference. But it would at least give us an indication of how many people really wanted to be a virtual teacher right off the bat. So,
kind of piggybacking onto virtual, Ms. McKim, will that survey go into parents? Sounds like you're thinking is if there's a widely available vaccine, we believe we will have more students that will choose in person.
Yes.
And so
And that's speculation.
I think it's pretty good speculation, but yes.
That's one of the things with communication. Speculation becomes the truth sometimes, and it's really just a step from a lie.
I'm a lawyer. I don't know anything about lies. But
of course not.
Will that survey flesh that out? In other words, if there is a widely available vaccine, which would be your preference? If there's not, if things stay, can there be some sort of differentiation? So that way, if we get into April, right, and there's a widely available vaccine, it's going good, then we kind of know we're going down one path. If it's not, then we kind of know we're going down a different path. And I was wondering
Well, that's why we want the teachers to go ahead and say which schools, because if the numbers are so low that we know we're probably not going to need but maybe 1 team per grade level, then I wouldn't want for people to think that they're going to automatically go, get that option. So I think that'll help inform us, just the general sense of what people are thinking.
And so do you think we'll get that data about if there's a widely available vaccine, are we going to get that kind of data from the parents in the virtual academy? In other words, if there's not a widely available vaccine or the virus is still spreading next year, what is your preference?
The questions.
The question: if there is a widely available vaccine, what would you choose, in person or virtual?
We can look at adding that as a two-pronged question. And I'm not really, I need to check back with.
I don't really know a survey, so I don't want to
Right.
question a survey that I've never seen.
Right.
Or we'll manipulate
I think
data.
what you're getting at though is some qualifiers, because just a do you want to do virtual, yes or no, may not be as informative, because it depends, right? If this, then I want, but if that, then I want, right? And so maybe a couple different scenarios. In this scenario, what would your preference be? In this scenario, what would your preference be, right? Because I think that fleshes out the different levels of comfort with potentially different scenarios.
I think it allows us to make decisions as we get the data in on the virus or events happen with its fight, right, with the vaccine. So that we already know that data. We don't need to research, because we've done that. We know the data, and we know that probably one additional 1/3 or 33%, if the vaccine is available, would come back face to face, or whatever the number is.
It's not a commitment, but it would be a directional indicator, I think.
I just think you're adding a lot of variables up front for people to think about. If you just have them put it as their number one priority, you go back to that group of people and you say, okay, we have a vaccine now. Is this still a priority for you? You're narrowing the field if you're giving them the choice of them putting virtual as a number one option. And just say on the
teachers.
form.
Are you I thought he was talking about parents.
I thought you were talking about
No, we're
teachers.
talking about parents.
No, also
Sorry, we're talking about
the
parents.
parents in the virtual academy currently.
Okay. I thought you were talking about the teachers wanting to change their minds.
Oh, no.
Teaching.
They might too. I'm sure they would too.
Right.
I mean, I'm not saying.
But, yeah, but we were talking
And
about.
that's one of the reasons we were looking at an application process to teach in the virtual academy versus just it being a choice. So we'll rethink that and come back with what we've decided.
What, if anything, will you do to gain an indicator on the 600-ish families that have withdrawn to go elsewhere? I mean, they're not in our system anymore, so I'm guessing we're not going to ask them any questions, but it would seem, I mean, it would be great if we had any indicator if they are planning to come back or not, because those would throw some numbers out of whack.
She's talking about Connections Academy and the
Yeah.
homeschoolers.
And again, they're not in our system
I
anymore,
think some of
so.
them have come back though, right?
We've had some come back.
Well, and that, my gut feel is that we may have others come back, which is why at least
Right.
having some indicator of the likelihood.
And that can happen with the growth projections. You know, we can look at that. I'm not sure how to track
I
that.
don't know either. I mean, like I said,
Back
we
then.
still have them in our system, but.
I think, well, Dr. Holt and I have talked, and Marty, we plan as if everybody's back, and then we back off there.
But when she goes to pull numbers, those people are not in those
Well,
numbers
we need to-
anymore.
Well, but we can put them in those numbers. I mean, we know, that give us an idea. When you spread it across 12 grades, at least you have an idea.
Right. Again, we start with who we have and we move them up and we look at what the current staff that is serving that student. I mean, that's kind of a wash. So
Right.
these are the teachers, these are the students we have now. If all else, nothing changes, this is
But he can make
kind of how it,
connections with those people in there.
right.
Could we reach out to those people?
That was really my question.
Yeah.
I didn't know if we could or not.
Could we not, you are a former student of our district, we hope all is well with your family, we're looking to gather some data. Could you, maybe less than 50% of them will actually respond, but maybe 95% of them will respond.
We'll have to just see how they are in Power School to track them.
Right.
It might not be terribly significant system-wide
Well,
to be.
If we were planning on growing by 700 or 800 and we add 600 on top of that,
That's very
it's significant.
That's a lot of classrooms.
So that's the only reason I say we could just think about what, if anything, you can do for those guys.
Sure. Okay. So it's a busy spring. Well, fall and spring, and I think we'll just kind of navigate through it.
Can I go back to a River Trail question that I didn't ask earlier? So students are showing up into a new school for the very first time on January the 4th. And I'm assuming where there's no way for them to get in any earlier and do any kind of looking around, wayfinder stuff, you know, kind of like what we did for Kingstown on the first day, but anything different in terms of bus routes or how we instruct the parents about car rider lines and all that kind of stuff? Is there
I think the admin team has worked on that, and if I'm not mistaken, they've done video tours and things like that. I don't know if you can expand upon any of that, but
yes, I think it'll be very similar to what Kingstown did. They'll have a video that shows the inside of the school, like a virtual tour. And most of the elementary schools you go to, they have like this grade level specific big signs, come in this door. So I think the teachers will have this unique opportunity that Kingstown didn't, that the teachers could even show the video in class. Hey kids, when you come, you're going to enter this door, here's a map, I'm going to be here, you know, my sign, you know. So I think there's going to be a lot of opportunity to prep the kids on where to go.
Because remember, the classroom will be moving as a group.
Right.
So
but bus routes don't need to change. I mean, obviously, where they're going to go will be different.
Yeah, we're set up at the beginning of the year. We kept the routes clean, so
Awesome.
Once we open up, they'll just go to road trips.
And one good thing about growing is you add schools quite often, and so you're kind of tweaking that plan and make it, yeah. So I think we got a pretty good plan in place.
All right. You're back up, so conveniently you're up.
Okay, great. I'm going to put Dr. Epps on the spot a little bit to kind of segue into this. Now, we're also excited as a district to be on the cutting edge when it comes to protecting our students, and this is why it falls under student services. We have entered into a joint lawsuit with numerous other districts around the country when it comes to vaping. We're at a national epidemic, and I'll give you some stats in a little bit. But we entered into a federal lawsuit that will be filed in California, and that's how they do big joint litigation. They combine all of them, and there's one group that represents us. Dave Duff and our attorneys represent us locally, but then he's part of the conglomerate that represents us. Now, the big thing to note is this does not cost our taxpayers any money, does not cost the district any money, no matter how this goes. In the end, if we do receive any compensation, it's going to be in the area of education resources. So getting kids help that are hooked on vaping and things like that. I'll give more detail as we go, but Dr. Epps was in the forefront of schools joining hands with local resources when they created York All on Board Committee. So I'm going to let him talk a little bit about that. Kind of impromptu. Sorry, Dr. Epps, put you on the spot, but I think it's important to show that long ago, Fort Mill School District was in the forefront of what can we do to protect kids in our community, not just those that we serve.
Well, you may remember, some of you may know and remember Bob Norwood, who was a parent in Rock Hill at the time and became the chair of the Rock Hill School Board. But back before all that, in the late 90s, I guess, Tommy, is that what?
That's right.
He had a vision. He noticed substance abuse issues in the schools in Rock Hill. He had a vision to form a group of it's a substance abuse committee and all 4 school districts were represented. And we had to agree to do that, and we did. What we did, we formed that. It became known as All on Board. And since then it's grown, and it included the law committee, the law community, the sheriffs, the drug enforcement people, like the multi-task force came as part of that, Robbie, multi-jurisdictional task force, I think they call it, and joined school counselors. So it was and I told Bob at the time, I said, I've seen parents get a concern, form a group, and I really thought it would fizzle in about 3 years. And I've apologized to them ever since. It's really been amazing, and they've done some amazing work. Scott can probably speak it from being an ex-principal. But that thing morphed out. They have a student group, and we've been a big part of it, Fort Mill School District through the years. Diane Dasher was on the board representing the school board here. So that's kind of the background of it. But in that context, we tackled issues like tobacco use, vaping wasn't even there then, you know. So this is a perfect place for that to spin off and take off. So we felt we could join. I think Lexington one we know is in this lawsuit. We're in it. I think they're talking to Greenville.
Correct.
So we're excited about it, what it'll do for children.
Thank you, Dr. Epps. Just a couple numbers for you to ponder. The reason we got into this, federal data shows that e-cigarette use among middle and high school students more than doubled from 2017 to 2019. More than 5 million youths reported using e-cigarettes and vaping products in 2019. Centers for Disease Control and Prevention shows that 21.6% of South Carolina high school youth currently use tobacco products, and the most used product among those is electric e-cigarettes, especially those produced by Juul. We've saw an alarming 78% increase from 11.7 to 20.8 when it comes to nationwide teen use of an e-cigarette. 2019 South Carolina Youth Tobacco Survey revealed that 39.5% of high school students in South Carolina had used an e-cigarette, and 22% reported using e-cigarettes in the last 30 days. High school age students report using Juul more than any other e-cigarette. They're the leading producer, and the key to the lawsuit is how they market their product. They have basically said we market towards the teen group. That's their number one hook. So that's why we're doing this, because we see the dangers. You see it in the paper. People have died because of this, especially teens, healthy teens, and what it puts into their lungs. So we're proud to take a stand with other school districts around the country to protect our students. Mr. Burke has put out I guess it's
we have a news release.
Media release.
Yeah, it'll be going out tomorrow. It'll be going out tomorrow.
Okay. To kind of put it out there in our community that this is what we're doing with the board support and with the administrative support. Any questions about that?
So to your point, there's no cost.
No cost
and it's a nationwide thing. But do we have any idea like what happens next and when?
I asked basic questions. It's a long, drawn-out process. But because of the filing in the federal court and how prominent this will be, it'll move quickly. And again, any settlement that comes across will be divided amongst those that are in. But anything that we can do to provide more information for our guidance team and our health teachers to give to students. I just talked with Mr. Young today. You know, the things that we did in 9th grade and 10th grade as far as producing curriculum for this kind of abuse now starts in 6th grade. That's kind of, we figured we missed them by the time it's 9th grade. So this will help push it into lower grades. Thank you.
Okay, next we have an action item having to do with the testing window.
I'm going to defer to Matt Roy,
Okay.
our Assessment and Accountability Coordinator. Just need your help.
Brian, you're a loud typer.
Yes, thank you very much.
Really strong fingers.
You need a mouse pad under that machine.
I just want to say thank you to everyone here for all the sacrifices and everything that we've done to kind of make our way through the challenges that we're facing during these times. But really, one of the areas that has been specifically or especially difficult for us has been for us in my department, one, because I'm the only testing coordinator in the district, but it's really the state stance on bringing students in who are enrolled in our virtual academy for testing. It's really been challenging logistically for schools to house these students and to bring them in for testing, but the state really has made it clear that we are to bring those students in as much as we possibly can for many of our test administrations this year. So as we look at those logistics and bringing the students in for testing, we're working closely with the school testing coordinators to ensure that we do have that safe and comfortable environment for them as social distancing, doing everything that we can to keep the family model together, elementary schools especially that have had to bring students in for testing. So trying all that we can do, but we do face a challenge with our testing window at the end of the year for SC Ready and PASS testing. So we're looking at that testing in particular for grades 3 through 8 in May and June. The state has given us the directive to test within the last 20 days. I believe that's in legislation. To count back 20 days from the last date of the calendar school year. So counting back from June 18th, we would have a testing window for all students in grades 3 through 8 testing SC Ready and PASS, and that would include those virtual students that would have to come into the buildings starting on Friday, May 21st. And if we know anything about testing, starting on a Friday is probably not going to happen. So what I'm asking for your approval on would be to apply for a waiver from the State Department of Education to start testing on May 17th instead of May 21st. What this will do will give us a full week ahead of our planned testing window so that we can get in possibly some grade levels before that last 20 days of testing. So with your approval tonight, hopefully I can send in that waiver tomorrow. We'll get the approval from the state very soon, and that way school testing coordinators will be able to plan their schedules and be able to kind of plan out how they'll administer those tests using that extra additional few days.
So you feel optimistic that it would be approved at the state level?
Yes, I think almost every single district in the state is going to be applying for at least a few days. Greenville's actually applying for like 15 extra days.
Okay.
And I've seen some other communication with our testing accountability group where a lot of districts are applying for this waiver.
Is there a penalty for, does the window, obviously the window adjusts, but if you go earlier, is the 17th giving you enough time?
Yes. I actually went around and talked to the school testing coordinators, and they said that they much prefer just having those additional days, because really, if we test too early, it would leave too many days at the end of the year, after testing. So we want to make sure that we're not doing that. But we'll have enough time.
And from a content standpoint, we will have made sure that we have delivered the content necessary for the student to be successful and not feel like they've let themselves or their teachers or anybody else down.
Correct. And normally this would be we would start within the last 20 days of school. This is just 4 additional days where we have, especially when we're having to bring in virtual students, I feel like that's just going to be logistically a time that we need a few extra days.
We need to give the parent that has to transport said virtual student enough time to plan and schedule updates.
Exactly, yes.
The state has been so inconsistent in the past that our staff is used to making sure that their kids are ready when it's time to come. So I'd like to make a motion that we accept the administration's recommendation to submit a waiver for 4 additional days of testing starting on May 17th, 2021.
We have a motion and a second to request a waiver to start testing early on May 17th. Is there any further discussion? All right, hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? All right, that motion carries.
Thank you.
I am curious, if there's a virtual parent who's not comfortable, what happens?
So the state has also, they've made it clear that we need to bring in virtual students for testing, but they've also made it clear that there's not really a test refusal or opt-out option. So what we're doing is just documenting that at the school level and making sure that we have email correspondence, phone correspondence documented, and we just kind of keep that on file, and we'll just keep filing.
Is that one less test to report?
Students not tested, we kind of report that. We save all that information. So.
All right. Thank you. All right. Last but not least, several items from you. It's your turn.
Right? Okay. So let's begin talking a little bit about calendar events. I want to go ahead and formally announce tonight that we're going to declare December 21st as the makeup day, going to be an e-learning day for the day we missed. Joe, anything to add to that? We've got I know it was an A day or B day, but we call it. Can you speak to that a little bit?
Yeah, it actually doesn't matter what day it was. The cancellation of school, the messaging was very specific that it was a cancellation for all students, even virtual academy students, and that's because yes, some students may have had assignments they could work on, but some didn't. So that we couldn't figure out how to do a makeup day with just a small group here or there. So we canceled everything, and then now we're going to have the makeup day messaging going out to parents tomorrow. That'll tell them the day, and it'll reiterate again that it's for all students, and that we'll be using an e-learning day to make up that time.
Okay. Can we talk about what that means? We're using an e-learning day a little bit, just to make sure that I understand it, and I'm hoping that the message is clear to the parents so they understand it.
We have the ability through the governor and the State Department of Ed's directives at the beginning of the year to have e-learning days. In fact, we were talking about one, we hadn't gone public with it, in January where we practice, where we take a day and do an e-learning day. In the event, we have to close down and go, go virtual.
Yeah.
So, and I think York and Clover are practicing some. So districts, so it's going to be neat. Now, what we hope to do in this case, since it's right before the holiday, we'll give an assignment on Friday, and they'll be, you're not going to be sitting in front of your computer on Monday as a student or a teacher. We're going to make it due when we come back. So that'll.
And the messaging that's going out specifically speaks to that. It actually says that there will be we're going to ask staff to create a curriculum in line with their course curriculum that does not require live instruction on that day, and that the assignments will be due following the end of break.
So nobody has to adjust their travel plans, including teachers. Nobody has to adjust anything, but sometime between now and then they've got to plan for a day and hand that assignment out to be done for a very small amount of effort, 1 day's worth of effort over the 2-week break, right?
Right.
So, logistically, if the student, kindergarten or high school senior, is not going to need access to the internet for that day? Because if so, then we need to make sure that we get the devices in the hands of those students who don't.
That's the idea behind giving them the assignment on Friday and giving them the whole. They won't need it on Monday.
Okay. So they can request
They want to work on Monday.
No, she's saying if they don't have access to a device because they're normally in school, then they would have to request
the device.
A device to take home over the break.
Or the teacher can create an assignment that the internet is not needed or a device is not
That's what
needed.
we're going to ask.
Like paper copy or whatever.
On the Friday, it's really going to be a paper assignment.
So yeah, I just think the messaging content is critical, because if it says makeup day on December 21st as the headline, let's not make that the headline.
Well, we don't want parents to worry that their children cannot complete that assignment or will get an absentee day because they don't have a device or they don't have access to the internet, or they've got to worry about picking up one.
And that's addressed in the note that we make public.
Perfect. Thank you.
Okay, and then just the normal calendar events, Thanksgiving holiday on the 25th through the 27th. The next school board meeting will be December 8th, and there's no second meeting in December. And then, of course, the winter holidays, with the 2 work days being the 21st and 22nd, the winter holidays will be the 23rd through the 4th. Is that right? So, and there may be other dates. I know that most of the socials and drop-ins, like the chamber and the Greenway, most of those have been canceled during Christmas. So you may know of other dates that you want to mention, but I don't have any formal dates for any events other than what I mentioned.
The only one that I know of that's a significant one is there's a school board, South Carolina School Board Association legislative advocacy conference the 3rd and 4th of December, and I know
It's
several.
virtual.
It's virtual. Several of us are plan on doing that, and then there's the delegate assembly where the School Board Association sets the priorities and beliefs for the year. And Michelle, we already voted way back when for her to be our rep for that. So that's the only thing big that I know of.
Okay.
Anybody else?
Any other day? Okay. Getting into the attendance update, we gained 32 students since October 6th. So we went from 16,887 we went from 16,855 to 16,887.
Yep.
32 students, and I think that's some of those we were talking about. The winners for October on the monthly attendance awards, Catawba Ridge with a high school 96.59, Fort Mill Middle 96.39, and Springfield Elementary 98.01. So those are the winners there. Questions about any of that, the attendance? And then I guess we're down to return to school plan update, right? Okay, so talk about communication. I guess I have failed to communicate. Intend is exactly what it means, intend. When I say we intend to go back, and I'm speaking now for also the 4 Yorks and Lancaster, and I've read in the school briefs where we all intend to go back second semester. I mean, and they're all a little different days because we all finished at different times. But with the way things are going, the spread of the virus, and I said that at the last meeting. So what we'll do when we get into January, we'll look at the data, we'll look at the virus counts, and we'll decide whether or not we go back second semester. We intend to go back. If we don't go back on that day, if the numbers don't prevent us from going back then, we'll look at the next date. You know, we always look at grading periods. We'll start looking at it at every 2-week intervals. So a decision, a decision's been made that we intend to go back, but a final decision won't be made until we actually get to that point in the sand. So anyway, I tried to say that last time. I'm trying to say it again. Between then and now, though, we are taking mitigating factors into account. We've ordered the middle school and the high school desk shields, and they'll be coming here soon, right? Okay. So we're going to go ahead and put those, install those, and we'll actually have those in the classes in probably December and January, even though we haven't gone back full bore or face to face. We are, we have completed the survey of staff. We haven't compiled the data yet, but that'll, we asked them, we didn't ask them, how we worded, Joe, we said.
Well, we asked them to share with us any additional safety measures or things that they may be using at their schools that we could implement district-wide. We also asked them what safety measures would be good to implement in their schools to aid with coming back, and protocols too. So there's 2 things. There's physical measures as well as protocols that we asked them about. It's all free-form answers, so it's taking a little while to compile it all together.
Well, we'll share the results of that too. But so that's where we are now. We want to get back to school. I mean, we intend to get back to school. We plan, we hope and pray to get back to school face to face. It has to be within a healthy environment, though. So that's, I don't know any other way to say it. We plan on it happening, but I can't tell you right now. I mean, we're shooting for second semester, and so is all the 4 Yorks and Lancaster and Chester.
Well, and actually a lot of districts throughout the state, if you read any of the clipping service every day, there's another one that's discussed, different dates. They're January 4th, they're February 1st or whatever, but it sounds like more and more and more districts are getting comfortable with the idea of having either kids in school, because some of them are just now getting to the 2 days, or getting to the 4 days and the 5 days, throughout the state.
We've already looked at, we said, we talked with the board about the additional staff we'll need to pull this off. And we posted some anticipated middle school positions today after we get this high school information back about virtual academy, we'll know. So there will be a cost associated with this, but we said that up front, and we're going to have to spend some mid-year money. It won't be a full 1.0 though for each position because you're only hiring for half a year. So we're still accumulating that. I think we posted 5 related arts positions today at the middle school level, and we're going to see what's out there.
We posted those in the morning.
Post them in the morning.
First thing in the morning, yes, sir.
I about told the truth.
That's it.
And as I remember, there was also some concern that there might be some student changes required, although minimal. I'm hoping still minimal since we did it at the semester change.
You mean kids want to go back to?
No. Schedule changes for the actual the current students, the AB students that are in person. In order to put them at 5 days, it sounded like there were some that we're going to need to adjust.
You mean some of the larger classes?
Yes.
And that's the extra staff, yeah.
Okay.
doing it at semester, the numbers will be a lot smaller.
I was saying, but it was a minimal number, right?
Right, it was,
Okay.
you're right.
So I have a quick question is as we look at pushing forward and the intent of trying to get kids to come back, middle and high school in mid-January, I know this, we're very careful in making sure that we're following through and looking at CDC and DHEC guidance on the way things sit right now, and what the state is doing, but the state's, I think, relatively left us to make our own decisions. Is there a threshold as things continue to get worse that we're looking at potentially moving in the other direction?
And you don't know how many times I've asked that question. So my answer to that is, we're not looking, we look at several data points. In other words, it's not going to be when the 32nd child tests positive, we go to the 31st. We look at that, we talk to DHEC, we get there. One school may shut down because we don't have enough teachers, for example. You know, so it's been troubling the last 2 weekends, to be honest with you, with the numbers. We've got a lot of kids in quarantine with the holidays coming up. We're all nervous, but yes, it could go in the other direction, and that's why I said we're going into everything. But we look at multiple factors, I guess is what I'm trying to say, not just an absolute.
What's our state of preparedness if it needs to go the other direction?
Well, that's what we're talking about. We were just talking about that Monday. We're getting to, Mike is working with the high school, the middle schools, and Peter with the elementaries about what that means. And what I would like to do, I don't want to do it where, and I think Wayne asked this question last time, where if we have to go the other direction or either direction, we say we got to do it tomorrow. I want to give them at least a 2-week deal. And that would be the value in taking a day in January and doing an e-learning day, just in the middle of the week. Just say, everybody stay home, and this is what it looks like. You know.
Can I address the rumor mill? There's all kinds of rumors that we've already made a decision that we're not going back after Thanksgiving. So can we, for the record, I do not believe we've made a decision that we're not going back after Thanksgiving.
No, I know Clover made that decision, and York made the decision. Some other districts, Rock Hill and Fort Mill, we're going back after that.
Maybe that's where it came from. I mean, it has been going all over the place in the last 48 hours that somehow that we're not going back and something.
That's a social media challenge.
I know. Yep. So, okay, good.
Anything else, staff, that I didn't say? We should say. So that's the plan. The plan's the same as it's always been. It just, I fail to communicate sometimes.
Well, or the rumor mill takes off. You know, I will say, just for the record, I know the numbers are troubling because of quarantines.
We still look pretty good on the.
I was going to say, and to me, any number of quarantine is still less than 100% of quarantine, because that's what it would be like to go the other direction, right? So I continue to be proud of how our district is performing, and the fact that it does not appear to be spreading like wildfire through the schools, which is why they quarantine, but then they come back. And it's funny to watch it roll. One football team goes home and a cheer team comes back, and then a track team goes. It's.
And I'm optimistic about what's coming forward with the vaccine. I mean, that's great news. That all the pundits are you know.
To kind of piggyback Ms. Spears, one, I think the latest article, the Wall Street Journal said the majority of cases we still don't know how they're transmitted. You know, so to say, well, it's, you know, we got it here or there, we still don't have enough data. The data's not there, which is unfortunate. I would encourage our governmental organizations to up those contact tracers, figure out how it's tracing, how it's spreading. I think that's integral to fighting it, battling it, making good decisions here. The second one is I just want to commend the district. The Murphy family personally experienced quarantine, and every single one of my kids' teachers took the extra time. I don't believe that's because they know who I am. I don't think that's it. But took the extra time, met with them, made sure they had work to do, met on video chats, made sure that there's not going to be a gap. Obviously, when you're not in the classroom, there's going to be some things, but met with them, made sure that they were working, made sure they weren't missing the things that were happening in class, and that was just really wonderful to see. And so thank you. I know that starts here, and the direction is, hey, make sure that we don't leave the students behind. And I personally experienced it, and we weren't, and we felt supported. And everything, obviously my wife's a teacher and she was in quarantine, and everything from HR was very well explained. Her options were explained to her very well. That worked really well. And I think that's going to help us get through this thing, is those processes are in place. Our district has amazing people, and it's helping families get through. Thankfully, we weren't sick, but we made it through, and we're back in school. We're super happy. Everybody did just a fantastic job, in my opinion.
I appreciate it, and I'm not surprised, but I appreciate the compliment.
Madam Chair.
I've got a German, I think, but I don't know what y'all got.
Any other questions for Dr. Epps? All right.
I'd like to make a motion to adjourn the meeting.
But before we adjourn, just officially, Anthony, welcome. This is kind of the norm. We are so excited that you're here. Tom, if you're watching, we're really going to miss you, but we are really excited to have you, and welcome to the Crazy Fun.
Thank you.
So,
Thank you so much.
all right. Did I hear a second?
It's still floating out there.
A second. All right. Unless there are any objections, we are adjourned.